You're listening to Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair. For more information, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at SBT Songs, or check us out at chrisblair.com. Hey everybody, this is Chris Blair and welcome to another episode of Stories Behind the Songs. This week we've got Ben Williams at the listening room today. Ben has played here quite a bit in the last couple months where he has shared some of his stories behind his songs, but today we're going to dive even deeper into those stories, taking a look at some of his hits for Megan Moroney and Avery Anna. Ben started out in Nashville 7 years ago attending Belmont before landing co-writes with smaller up-and-coming artist Avery Anna. They ended up writing Narcissist, which was his first cut and first song to go to radio. Ben tells the story behind this one as well as how he met Megan Moroney. You're going to hear the story behind his first co-write with Megan and the many writes that followed. Ben has 7 cuts off of Megan's debut album, which went #1 on Rolling Stone. He takes us into the writer's room when they wrote the huge hit Tennessee Orange and I'm Not Pretty. Ben also walks us through Tennessee Orange, going #1 and the buzz that came from that, winning several awards, a CMA nomination, and how that song went viral before it even came out. This is a very cool story to hear. Ben also plays an unreleased track for us that he usually plays during his shows here at the listening room. This one is so good and has still not been cut. Let us know what you think. Let us know in the comments. Keep an eye out for Ben during his shows here at the listening room. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, give us a follow, click that notification bell so you can stay up to date when we sit down with new songwriters. We also want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Sennheiser, Imperfect Esthetician, and All Clear In-Ears. If you are looking for a good set of in-ear monitors, make sure to take advantage of our code SBT Songs during checkout and you get 10% off. Let's get to it. Here is this week's episode with Ben Williams. All right, here we are again with another episode, and this week we have Ben Williams. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
Thanks for setting your alarm early and getting up, man.
Yeah, I'm going on a good 45 minutes awake, dude. I'm rocking and rolling.
Yeah. Wipe that stuff out of your eyes.
Yeah, I was like in the car on the way. I was like, oh, that's toothpaste.
So let's dive in. How long you been in town?
I have been in town, I guess, technically full time for about 7 years now. My family's all from Pegram, Tennessee.
Okay.
So I spent the majority of my summers growing up in Nashville, kind of anyways. So it feels like I've been here my whole life.
Yeah.
But I moved here like full time officially about 7 years ago when I transferred into Belmont.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're a signed writer.
Mm-hmm.
So how did that process go for you when you first got to town? How'd you get signed?
Yeah. Okay. That's such a great question. So pretty much I transferred in from a college called Santa Clara University in California to Belmont University. And while I was at Belmont, my sophomore year, I got an internship at the company I'm still signed to today called Major Bob Music.
Yeah. And
at Major Bob, I filed all the papers, transcribed the lyrics for literally 2 years. I was like, you guys can't kick me out of here. I'm just I need to be ingrained here and just do my thing. And I had an EDM cut while I was an intern, and it was top 15 on EDM radio. And they were like,
wow.
Our intern is writing songs, we need to talk to him. And long story short, that turned into them offering me my deal, which was going to be May of 2020. But COVID hit in March. And so that deal kind of went off the table, which was also going to time up right when I graduated school.
Yeah.
The long story short, that deal got pushed back, but I signed it August of 2020. So right when I graduated school, I kind of got to immediately start working professionally, which was such a blessing.
That's great.
Yeah.
They're a great team.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I've been there technically I've been in the building for 6 years now.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Since I was 19.
Yeah. You just don't have to file anymore.
No, I just don't have to file. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
I mean, I still would if they need me to, but.
Well, I mean, they made a good choice because I mean you've got some great songs. I want to dive right into it and maybe go back to how you got into music in the first place if we've got some time. But
for sure,
you wrote Narcissist for Avery Anna that was certified gold.
Yes.
So talk about that.
Yeah, I think that was it's so funny when I play here, I always kind of intro it with this was the first song I ever got to hear on the radio. This is the first plaque I got to hang on the wall. And I'm always this was the first song I got to go home for Thanksgiving and my parents not be like, what are you doing with your life?
What is a songwriter? Yeah.
But so pretty much, we'll get into Megan as well, but I was Avery Anna and Megan Moroney's first co-writes in Nashville ever, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But so Narcissist came, I guess, about a year after we'd been writing, and it was my first write with David Fanning, who I'm close with and is her producer as well. And we sat down that day and we were just kind of like trying to do something different and new and young and just like emotional. And we only wrote the first half that day. We wrote like the first verse and the first chorus, and then we didn't have we never said the title. And we were like, oh, that's so cool. We should probably just do that the whole song. But then it took us I ended up going out of town with my fiance and her family and texting like second verse options from the airplane. And so we kind of pieced it together from there. But she ended up putting it out, and the platform it went the most crazy on was actually YouTube. Like right away, YouTube just grabbed it in the comment sections. Even still today, when I need some inspiration, I'll go to the comment sections on that song, and it's just thousands of people and their stories with Narcissists. And when we were writing that song, we didn't know how much of an impact it would have on that community.
Yeah.
But looking back, it's like so cool to be like, oh, my first song touched so many people in that certain way, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Where did the idea come from?
You know, I really don't know. I know, in that moment, I think it was just, well, I do know, but the specific Narcissist idea, I think it just kind of came out. But Avery had been dating this guy from high school who had just been a typical high school relationship, a guy not emotionally smart at all yet, who just wasn't really nice to her and Avery's the sweetest person you'll ever meet.
Yeah.
And so he just wasn't emotionally intelligent and was just kind of mean and only thought about himself. And kind of a lot of the lines that we ended up writing were just you lose your voice when you yell too much. You're yelling at me. You're so mean. You're putting me down. And so as we were writing it, we were kind of even looking at the definition of what a narcissist was. And I think that's kind of where we were like, oh, these qualities of this person that we're trying to write about actually fit this definition pretty to the T. And I think that's maybe where we pieced the narcissist part together.
So good.
So fun.
Yeah.
I love that one.
Well, you mentioned Megan.
Yeah.
I grew up in St. Louis.
Okay.
So I was a Mizzou fan.
Okay, gotcha.
But it was kind of I was a Mizzou fan because my family was a Mizzou fan.
Right.
I probably was I can maybe name 2 or 3 players.
Yeah,
I wasn't really a fan.
Yeah.
And then moved to Nashville 20 years ago and became a UT fan.
Okay.
So when
I'm a UT fan too.
When that song came out, I was like, oh man, this is such a good twist of and the rivalry. Now obviously Mizzou is part of the SEC.
Right.
When I moved here, it wasn't. So it was I didn't get it. I moved and I was like, whoa, this is a whole beast. This is So talk about, you had 7 cuts on Megan's album.
Mm-hmm.
First number 1.
Yeah.
Just incredible story. So I want to hear about, obviously Tennessee, but just that relationship. You said that you were you guys, you were her first, right?
Right.
So walk us through how that relationship developed and then writing for that album.
Okay, for sure. So it's such an interesting story. So at the time, my plugger was Tina Crawford. Tina used to work at Major Bob, and she left about, I want to say, a year and a half into my first deal. And at the time, I was baby writer right into my first deal. No cuts, no nothing. Just, kind of the beginning sort of writes, the right dating all around town. And so at the time, too, I was trying to write a Morgan Wallen song, a Luke Bryan song, and all these songs that, those guys are cutting songs from their buddies. They're not really interested in what the guy who just signed his deal is doing. So I needed to kind of figure out who was on my playing field. And so Julie Griffith, who's Megan's manager to this day, had called Tina and asked if she had any baby writers, because Megan had never really written a song, and if anybody would be interested in writing with her. And that was me, which is really crazy to look back. But that whole connection, even with Julie, starts with Megan went to Georgia.
Yeah.
And she interned for Christian Bush, who's now her producer.
Yeah.
Christian Bush from Sugarland, if you guys don't know him by name. And so at the time, Christian was kind of oh, my intern is a good singer and knows the business. And he's the one who introduced Megan to Julie. And then Julie called Tina and was like, do you have anybody who'd want to work with Megan? She hasn't done this before. And I was like 22 at the time. And so we just started writing on Zoom. And she was back in Douglasville, where she's from, in Georgia. She hadn't even moved to Nashville yet.
Wow.
And so we would just write on Zoom, like all the time. And I remember the first day that we ever wrote. I think it was the tail end of 2020 or the very beginning of 2021. But I remember being in Denver with my my fiance's family, and her being on my calendar, and me being like, I don't know this person. Like, we've never written. I'm kind of on vacation. And I was like thinking, like, should I just like move this day or cancel this day? Like, I don't really feel like working while I'm on vacation. And I look back and I'm like, man, am I glad I didn't do that?
Yeah.
And like, you know, also I wouldn't have had a friend, because we're good friends too. And so right when she moved to town, we started writing. And the first one I think that got people's attention was like Hair Salon. I don't know if you've ever heard Hair Salon, but like, so we wrote her EP, Pistol Made of Roses, came out before the album. And we did Keep the Flowers, He Made Me Do It, and Hair Salon on that. And that was kind of like, oh, I get this sound. We are creating a sound. It's kind of just like funny, smart, lyrical, you know, ideas, but also that don't sound like pop country. You know, it sounds more country than it has been. And so Hair Salon kind of got it going. Like, it was her first, I think, well, Wonder, her song that she written by herself, had maybe done 1 million streams, but it was like the first song in town that people were like, who is this girl?
Yeah.
What is this? What is this style of writing? And then after that, I don't even like ever remember her being like, let's start writing an album. Like, I really don't remember that ever being like a task. But I know out of all those songs on the record, I'm Not Pretty, which is now her radio single right now, we had written way early on. I mean, I remember like that EP that I was talking about. Like, I remember her being like, I don't know, should I put I'm Not Pretty on this EP, or should I wait till I have a record? So that song's like, I mean, we probably wrote that closing in on 3 years ago, which is crazy. Wow. And then Sleep on My Side, I think, was another earlier one. And I remember her coming in that day with pretty much the full chorus, and her being like, I don't know, is this like too risque or stupid to say? And I was like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Let's do that. It's like, because, you know, the hook is like, I sleep on my side and you sleep with everyone. And that's like, it's my favorite song to play here. I always start the round with it.
Yeah.
Because most people haven't heard it, but definitely the younger kids have, because it was so big on TikTok.
Yeah.
And so it just always sets the scene when I'm like looking out at the crowd and they're like listening intently to this song. And then I say sleep with everyone. They're like, what?
Yeah.
But no. And then, you know, I remember, I guess I could get into a little bit about Tennessee Orange, but I remember the day that we wrote Tennessee Orange. I mean, the day that she told me kind of what, you know, what the plan was for it, or maybe like the social media buzz that I think came from it, was the day we wrote Lucky, which ended up being the title track. And I love talking about Lucky because that song was like, I think that was the day that we were like, okay, this is the album. This is country music. This is the centerpiece. Even though I don't know if it'll ever be a radio single, it was kind of like, this is the sound. And then I remember when she was saying that she wanted to name the record Lucky, it was because she felt like that's, you know, kind of how her career has gone so far. And she just feels lucky about it. Like, even though that was also the title, it was like that whole meaning behind it, which I thought was so cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. And then, so when did she bring the idea for Tennessee Orange? So
we wrote that. I had to like check my phone the other day because somebody asked me, but I think we wrote it April of 2022. Yeah, because it went to radio in 2022. Yeah, so we wrote it April of 2022, and that day it was so crazy. So I had walked into Major Bob. Tina was still there at the time. Yeah. And I had a totally different write on the calendar. I mean, I was not supposed to see Megan that day at all. And so I walked in, and like Major Bob has like these steps in the middle of the room. And Tina, I used to have this office like on the left. And I walked in there, and Tina came. I could like hear somebody coming down the steps, and I was like, weird. But I think she like came into my room, and she was like, hey, I canceled your write because Megan is writing with Paul Jenkins and David Fanning, and they've never really met. And I think it'd be great if you just like, you know, because you and Megan write all the time, if you just kind of made that intro, you guys all wrote together. And I was like, okay, great. At any time that I want, you know, that Megan was available to write, I wanted to write with her because I knew that we were building something really cool. Yeah. Even before anything had happened. And so Megan called me and she's like, hey, I heard you're coming to the write. which is so great because I had this idea last night and it's called Tennessee Orange and I was going to save it for you, but now that you're coming today, let's just write it. And she literally had the whole idea, which was like, you know, in Georgia, they called us in. I'm wearing Tennessee Orange rims. She had that and I was like, that's so cool. I was like, my mom went to UT and she hates that gaudy orange. So I was like, I immediately get what this is about. And I think we could crush it. And literally we got there and she told them the idea and we all loved it. And before that, Megan and I had never written a love song, like ever, because she hates boys and I'm kind of like a bad bitch at heart. So I'm like, why would we write love songs anyways?
Yeah.
But she was like, you're not going to believe me, but we want to write a love song today. And we just started rolling. I think like the first verse, the chorus, the second verse, and the bridge were all there, but it wasn't exactly the way you hear it today. And like, it was really close. But Megan is the type of person, and she's a genius songwriter in her own right. But she went home that day and she changed. We had a different line and she added like the I'll blow a fuse at the beginning. And then she changed a little bit of the second verse. And then I remember right before she went in to cut it, which I think she cut it in June. And there's a funny story with that too, because when she was going to cut it, she was like, I want to get this song out because I think we're going to write a better like Georgia football song by next season or something. And I was like, yeah, probably. But it was because we didn't know what it was going to do. But right before she went in and cut, she was like, I want to change something about the song to make people not think I'm a Tennessee fan. Because she's not. She's a Georgia fan.
Yeah.
And so just her and I, literally, I think it was a couple days before she recorded it. We just got back in together and just scanned through the whole thing. And we added right at the end, I still want the dogs to win. And that was like, now when I sang that, now I think that's like Megan's, hey guys, don't forget, I'm still a Georgia fan.
Yeah.
That's really it. Crazy.
That's so good, man.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit more about what came after that song. But do you want to play a little bit of it?
Sure. Let's see if I could sing at 9:30 this morning. Mama, I'm calling. I got some news. Don't you tell Daddy, he'll blow a fuse. Don't worry, I'm doing okay. I know you raised me to know right from wrong. It ain't what you think, and I'm still writing songs. Just never thought I'd see the day. And I never felt this way. But I met somebody, and he's got blue eyes. He opens the door, and he don't make me cry. He ain't from where we're from, but he feels our home. Yeah, he's got me doing things I've never done. In Georgia, they call it a sin. I'm gonna do it. And I still want the dogs to win. But I'm wearing Tennessee orange for him.
I love it, man.
I had to do the dog
Yes,
thing.
yes. She'll thank you for that.
Of course. I don't. I want the Vols to win.
Yeah. This episode is brought to you by Sennheiser microphones. When we first started this podcast, we were using some older microphones, and Sennheiser came in and sponsored us and gave us some MK4s and 914s. And I mean, I'm telling you, it's made all of the difference in the world. We love these microphones. We use them at the listening room as well. And I just can't say enough great things about them. Go check out Sennheiser.com. If you are into music in any way, their microphones are hands down the best on the planet. Go check them out, Sennheiser.com. And thank you, Sennheiser, for the support and the sponsorship. We love y'all. So I want to dive in, like, the awards week here in Nashville is so fun. Yeah. It's so also fun. Like, we need a week of vacation after it. 100%. But you know, I loved, you know, like watching her over and over and over, just all of the success that week. I was at the CSAC Awards.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So yeah, just talk about, I mean, CMA Song of the Year nominee and just everything that came after, and like just how quickly that song just blew up.
I mean, it was so, first off, I have to say, like, how grateful I am for all of it, because it just changed my life overnight and everything about, my career really fast. And it happened so fast, I think, where it was like, I don't know if we were able to ever emotionally catch up to what was kind of happening. Because Tennessee, like she posted the picture in the Vols shirt, and that just broke the internet immediately. Like, whose shirt is this? Whose shirt is this? And then separate from that, which I don't know if people really talk about as much, because the whole, is that Morgan's Wallen shirt was the talk of the town. But like the clip of just the song too, the whole I Met Somebody part, went viral on TikTok separate from it being about the Morgan thing. It was like a whole trend of like posting who you were dating, or like just like a couple things. So there was like 160,000 videos that used the sound along with the whole other viral part of whose shirt is this. So the song was just blowing up, blowing up, blowing up. There were news articles about everything at the same time, where people were actually listening to the song because it was a love song. So the streams just went like crazy. And then she ended up signing her record deal right when the song was blowing up. And then all of a sudden awards week rolls around, and we're like, NSAI, they gave us the top 10, the 10 songs I wish I've written. We had the CMA Song of the Year, ASCAP, most performed. And so not only was it like, my, I guess, second hit because of Narcissist, but it was my first radio single. It was my first top 40, first #1, first CMA nomination, first NSAI. It was like everything that you could kind of check off the bucket list was with my first big song. And it was just like, it was so unbelievable. I remember like I got to have my parents and my grandparents and Bella's parents come for the NSAI awards. And then my dad and my grandma come from the CMAs, and my mom and everybody to be there. And it was really just like, it was so hard to live in the moment, because it was just all like I guess like a snowball. And you're just like, what's next? What's next? It's never ending. It's never ending. And now looking back on it, it's like, oh my gosh, like that was kind of a once in a lifetime. Hopefully it won't be, but like, such an unbelievable thing to look back on. So overwhelming and so cool and so dream come true.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah. The way that it just kind of blew up, and you're right. It just, it even as just as a fan, just watching, that song blow up on socials, and in a good way, right? Like there's a lot of things that blow up, and it's like, oh, this is like, it's a cool song, like clicky or whatever.
Right.
But the like I said earlier, the spin and the way that you guys told that story was just so brilliant.
Oh, thanks.
And I just, I'm a fan. It was cool. It was cool to just have a backseat and watch. But I don't think it's that once in a lifetime thing.
Yeah.
So and you've already got like let's come off of the success of Tennessee Orange, and you've got I'm Not Pretty.
Yeah.
That's also doing great that you wrote with her. So like take us into the room that day.
Okay. So I'm Not Pretty. So Micah Carpenter, Mackenzie Carpenter, Megan, and myself write a bunch together. And we've been writing pretty much the four of us since Megan first moved to Nashville. We call ourselves Jimmy James, because at the end of Megan and Mackenzie have a song called Nothing Crazy out. And at the end of Nothing Crazy, we talk about naming dogs and naming babies. And we go, how about Ella Grace and Jimmy James? What about Scout and Sadie? And so we just decided to call ourselves Jimmy James, and we always have. And we still write a bunch together. Megan just went in and cut a couple new ones of ours, which I'm really excited about. But anyways, that day, when you put the four of us in a room, we're definitely going to get a song, but we're just going to laugh the entire time.
Yeah.
And we used to write at Major Bob, and we were so loud, just laughing and being obnoxious, that I would get texts to be like, hey, can you guys be quiet?
You're kicked out of here.
Literally, like
keep writing songs, but go somewhere else.
The other people like couldn't focus because we all are the same, and we just make each other laugh the whole time. And so when we were writing I'm Not Pretty, that was another. Megan is one of my favorite idea people to ever write with, and that was another one of her ideas. And I was like, yeah, it's great. Let's write that. But anyway, so that day we were writing, we wrote the first verse and the second and the first chorus. And we could not finish it because we were just literally having too much fun that I think it became like 4:30 p.m. And we're like, guys, let's go home.
Yeah.
But we have a good idea started. So then we went back to Micah and Mackenzie. Micah still lives there, but over on 15th Avenue by Belmont. And we had finished that song. I think we kind of did like a wine night. Every once in a while, we'd be like, should we do like Jimmy James pizza and wine and like finish all the ideas that we've started?
Yeah.
And so we sat on their couch and we put the lyrics of I'm Not Pretty on the TV. So we were like looking at the lyrics on the TV and writing it. But I remember it just coming out super fast. And we all like were so comfortable with each other that no one is ever, in their phone writing the lyrics and then being like, what do you guys think about this?
Yeah.
We're so fast
so
that
good.
like it's just everybody's. I can't even remember which lines of that song were mine because we're just like, hey, what about this? What about it? Yes, yes, yes. And then we just continue. And then that song, had a life of its own on TikTok. And I think the big thing about that was it was her first song that she put out after Tennessee Orange.
Yeah.
And so there was so much anticipation. And I think it kind of led right now to, I think we're 25 on the charts and rocking and rolling, which is crazy.
And rising. Yeah.
And rising.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, come on, let's go back to that.
Yeah. Man, I love that. That's one of the coolest things that I love about this place.
Yeah.
Is that we get to hear all these stories and songs before anybody else does. You know, before they, like you guys write these songs and you come in here and you're like, I just wrote this today or last week or whatever. Like, what do you think? Like, and it's so cool. And especially to watch those songs become what songs like Tennessee end up doing.
Yeah.
But it's also really cool to hear the songs that nobody else has ever heard.
For sure.
And I want to dive into that a little bit because we love having you here.
Yeah. I love being here.
And there's a great song that we all love that has not been released. I want to dive into that if we can a little bit.
Of course.
So can we talk about 30,000 Feet?
Of course. I love it. I was literally just thinking about this because I feel like I play it every time I come here. And I have 2 new songs. I just wrote with Old Dominion. We wrote one of my favorite songs I think I've ever written, which I might replace 30,000 with next time I play.
Oh, come on.
But then we just did this, if you saw on social media that Walker Hayes posted a song called Zach Bryan, and it was all about Zach Bryan and that beef. Well, Walker and I wrote that together last week, and so I might have to tell that story here too. But we did, so 30,000 Feet, I love. Did you just think of this? I love that you're asking me about it.
Yeah, it's a great story. I want you to take us into it.
So at the time, this was, I guess, 2 years ago, me, Andy Sheridan, Josh Miranda, and Brett Warren from the Warren Brothers would do 9 a.m. Wednesday clubs. So every other Wednesday, we would start at 9 a.m. and just kind of start something crazy that we could text to an artist or just really hang out, but just get the day started early. And it was my first write. This was our first Wednesday club, so it was my first write with Brett ever. And I hadn't really had any success at all yet. So Brett was like a massive write to me. Brett wrote Red Solo Cup and every
huge,
time. Just the man. And I remember we were sitting there for a second and had not decided on an idea. And I was like, oh, crap, he's going to think I suck because I don't have any good, I'm like, what am I doing? And he was like, hey, Ben, you're the young new kid. He literally was like, tell me the weirdest title that you have in your phone. And I was like, what does that mean? And I was like, there's weird stuff in all of our phones. But I was like, I had a title literally called 30,000 Feet Above El Paso. And I was like, that's got to be weird enough. And he was like, I love that. He was like, take me to where you were when you thought about it. And I just remember I've been in a really happy relationship for 6 years, but I'm a songwriter, so I'm always thinking about breakup stuff. And I literally remember being on a United flight from wherever we were going over El Paso and looking. I'm scared of flying, so I'm always looking at the data or whatever. And I remember it literally saying 30,000 feet, and we were over El Paso, and I was like, ooh, that sounds cool in my head. And then I was looking out the window. I was like, I bet somebody on this flight just got broken up with or something, and they're thinking about their breakup. And I was 30,000 feet above El Paso, but I'm still not over you, sort of thing. And I remember telling that to Brett, and he was like, that's so cool and so different. And we wrote the whole song that day, and we sent it to a bunch of artists, but I think we sent it to Jake Owen, and Morgan Wallen had it for a second. And then that was before his big record, and so they didn't end up cutting it, and it's still a free agent. One of my favorite songs to play.
Yeah, love it. Do you want to play a little bit of that one?
Oh, yeah.
Let's go.
Gosh, that's fun. I need to figure out how to play this Old Dominion song because I want you guys to hear it.
Yeah.
I only brought a backpack up in the overhead, a couple clean shirts and a pack of cigarettes, and I don't smoke. Old flip-flops and a pair of shades and a paper bag. A Hemingway ought to get me to where I need to go. Sipping 77 on a 737 with a hell of a window view. I'm a one-way away from the 38 shade, doing everything I can do. How did you catch me? It's like your memory flies as fast as this plane will move. I'm 30,000 feet above El Paso. You think I'd be over you? You think I'd be over you?
Come on, Ben.
Dude, I love that.
Yeah. That's so good.
Thank you.
When did you figure out that you wanted to write songs?
I never even thought that I would ever want to do that in the first place. So I was at, I'd mentioned a little bit earlier that I was at Santa Clara University before I transferred into Belmont.
Yeah.
And none of my family is musical at all. So I didn't grow up around music, at least nobody playing it. But my mom always had country on because she's from Pegram, Tennessee, and that's just what we listened to.
Yeah.
But my brother, he kind of started playing the guitar, but more like finger picking style.
Uh-huh.
And I never had the patience to learn guitar like that. I still don't. And but we had a piano, like a baby grand or whatever, in the garage, and he taught me at least how to play chords. And so this was kind of like the summer before college. So I learned like C, G, D, A, E, B, like the simplest chords on the piano, and just for fun, just so I could like sing country songs like horribly. And when I went to Santa Clara University, I had a keyboard in my dorm that I never played, but like was just kind of there. And I remember we were on quarters, so it was the second quarter, which was pretty much right before Christmas of my freshman year. This would have been 2016. I sat down one day and I like played 3 chords and I like just threw out a song. And it happened so fast. I mean, it was 20 minutes and it had like a twist to it. I remember it was called Lost and Found, and it was like horrible. But the hook was, you know, like, I'm in the lost and found sort of thing, but like with you, I was lost and now I'm found. And like, I just remember being like, what was that? I have no idea how I just did that. I've never done that before. I've never tried to do that. I didn't even know I could rhyme words. And I was like, I just was obsessed. And like, I was already obsessed with lyrics. When I listen to music, I really can barely hear the music at all. All I really hear is the lyric and the melody. And from that day on, so I guess it would have been, right before 2017, I just would write songs every day. Like I would skip class and write songs and go to practice to run and just write more songs. And I just became obsessed with it. And I literally haven't changed anything till today. I just write songs every day. But that summer, after I'd finished my freshman year, I went into my dad's office and I was like, listen, like whatever this is, I didn't even know a publishing deal existed. I didn't even know you could make a living writing songs, but I was like, I'm passionate about this. I hate communications and political science. Like I'm probably just going to be a real estate agent or something. But I was like, hey, I want to move to Nashville. And he was like, okay, whatever. And I was like, well, I really want to. And so I literally went into another room in the house, I called Vanderbilt first because, I kind of wanted to just move here and bartend. My parents were like, you should try to go to college if you can, because I was running and that helped me get into school. Yeah. So I called Vandy and I was like, do you guys have a track team? Because Vandy was the only school I knew in Nashville. They're like, we don't. We only have a club team, so we can't like get you in. And I was like, oh, I went like, colleges in Nashville. And Belmont popped up and I was like, whoa, it's a music school too? And they have a track team and they have a cross country team? So I literally called the coach and he was like, on the phone call, he was like, yeah, I mean, your grades look good enough. Your times look good enough. He was like, I think I have a locker for you. And like on that call, he literally went over to admissions and was like, yeah, we can get you in. If you want to come, just let me know. And I was like, I want to come. So like within that tiny period of time, I like called Santa Clara, dropped out, and accepted admittance. I'm sure it was maybe a little longer than I'm making it sound. Don't want to get Belmont in trouble, but like it was that fast where I went back into my dad's office and I was like, well, I'm going.
Not only do I want to, I am.
I am.
Yeah,
and he was like, he kind of was just like, it's your life, roll with it, whatever. And in a supportive way. And then my mom, who's from here, was like stoked. She was like, I don't know if this is ever going to work out, but I'm so happy you're going back to Nashville. And that was literally how I started writing songs and just moved here on a whim.
Wow.
Literally a whim.
Yeah.
Just tried to make it happen.
I'm glad you
Crazy.
did, man.
I'm
You write
glad I
great
did
songs,
too.
and we love having you here all the time. So
I love being here. This is the
man,
best
thank
place.
you. Thanks for sharing these stories.
Yeah, of course.
Can't wait to have you back down the road,
Yeah.
and we'll talk about the next hits that are coming.
So stoked. I mean, this whole thing, it's such a blessing to be able to wake up, not only like do what I love for a living, but also, see that it's working and get to enjoy the fruits of it. And also Megan and I started both with nothing. And so to rise together and sort of make our marks alongside each other has been a blessing.
Yeah.
Stoked.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap up, I always end with the same question. And I asked you before we started if you'd heard any episodes, and you said no.
Yeah.
So you have no idea what's coming. And
No.
we're almost a year into this, dude.
Okay.
So get on the train
I
and
was
listen to a
gonna say,
podcast.
I'm like a podcast
I mean,
nerd.
Christian Bush, you were talking about, he's a buddy of mine.
Yeah.
He's been on here. Like, come on. So if you go back to 8-year-old Ben, that at that point wasn't doing music at all.
Mm-hmm.
And now you've learned what you've learned and you've done what you've done.
Yeah.
What advice do you give yourself today?
Oh, that's so good. I feel like there's two things. The first thing is when you have that fiery passion sort of thing, recognize it and chase it down. Because thank God I felt that way with songwriting. Because had I just gone, I really love doing this, but this will just be my hobby sort of thing, my whole life would look different right now. And so I think if you're so passionate about something that you love, find out how to make that the forefront of your world.
So good.
And I think for me in high school, that was football, and I loved football, but I never really made it my passion. And I wanted to play in college, but I never really made that my goal. I didn't nerd it out about it and learn every part about it. I didn't dive in like I did with songwriting.
Yeah.
I think that's the big thing. And then the other thing too is I really, 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 really do believe the sky is the absolute limit. And if don't ever let anybody diminish your dreams or anything with that. I remember being in the car with my dad, on the way to Palm Desert. Not that he said anything negative, but he was like, what do you want to do with this whole songwriting thing? And I literally said, I want to be the best songwriter in the world. And I still feel that way. And for me, every day waking up and I want to be the best at what I do. And guess what? If I'm not the best at what I do by the time that my career's over, hopefully I'll be close or somewhere there. So I think it's chase down whatever passion you have and then shoot to be the best and try to be the best, because you're either going to end up the best or you're going to be close to it. And I think that's just something I've always at least I've recently, the last 5 years, really tried to accomplish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Such great advice, man.
Oh, dude. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing. Thanks for being here.
Of course.
We appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. We will put liner notes in there in the notes below to follow Ben and make sure that you keep up with him and watch the new songs that are coming out soon. And we'll see you next time. This has been an episode of Stories Behind the Songs with Ben Williams.
Yeah. Come to a show.
Let's go. Thank you for listening to another episode of Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair. Make sure to give us a follow on Spotify if you enjoyed this episode, and make sure you click that notification button so you can keep notified when new episodes come out. We release brand new episodes every Tuesday, and you can find us on YouTube at Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to send us a comment letting us know what you thought of the episodes. We love getting your feedback, and share this with your friends. The more we grow, the more that we can keep doing this. It's our mission to bring you all of these great stories behind the songs from some of Nashville's most iconic artists and songwriters, publishers, producers, everyone in between, and a lot of my great friends. We love what we do, and we love sharing their stories with you. We appreciate all of the continued support. Thanks also to all of our sponsors, and we will see you all next week.